I'm Bob, just an ordinary office worker. I may be a lowly office worker, but I have a family to protect. But I realized that the people I thought were my family were something else entirely. Today, I want to talk about that time. I got married young and soon had a child. My wife, Karen, was a quiet person, always walking a step behind me. Sometimes, when she got angry, she would surprise me, but she would calm down when I reasoned with her. I was proud of my beautiful wife and adorable daughter and felt truly fortunate to have them. Having something to protect gives a man the motivation to work hard. I thought Karen felt the same way. But it turned out she didn't. I found out when our daughter announced her engagement. When our daughter, Emily, was about to get married, Karen inexplicably opposed the wedding vehemently. The man Emily brought home was a very polite young man named Mike, and I really wanted her to marry him. But Karen kept interrupting whenever Emily talked about him. No matter how much Emily praised him, Karen would say things like, "He probably can't hold a job. It doesn't matter if he has an education if he can't work, and he's annoying with that know-it-all expression, even though he only studied." Karen, whenever she got angry, would suddenly start berating the other person, and she wouldn't calm down until I intervened. I couldn't understand what made Karen so angry. Mike was handsome and kind, and he just brushed off Karen's comments. He even had the kind of looks Karen usually liked, so I thought she'd be happy about the wedding, but she wasn't. At first, I thought she was just a bit lonely, but now I realize she simply didn't like him. Karen has always made snide remarks to Emily. Even though Karen was against it, I talked to Mike and believed he would make Emily happy, so I approved the marriage. I was happy to have her back, of course, but Karen was different. Karen was strongly opposed.
Having a pregnant woman around would be a huge inconvenience. She wouldn't do anything around the house, relying on us just because she's pregnant. What kind of daughter is she?
Karen said things you wouldn't normally say. But I wanted Emily to give birth comfortably, so I persuaded Karen. It was tough, but I managed to arrange for Emily to come home for the birth. Having Emily at home was tough, too. I tried to keep Karen in check to avoid stressing Emily, but Karen would still make nasty remarks on purpose. Her treatment of Emily, even with a baby on the way, was truly selfish and terrible. Still, Emily gave birth safely, and about a month later, she was ready to return to Mike. Emily was resting well, and I thought they could now live happily and peacefully as a family. Then Emily quietly said, "I don't want to go back." I was shocked. Surely being with Mike was better than dealing with Karen's nastiness. For a moment, I wondered if there was something wrong at home or with Mike, but he seemed like a genuinely kind and considerate young man. So, I thought there was no way that was true. I figured she was just emotionally unstable after giving birth. I remember telling her, "It'll be tough raising a child and taking care of the house, but make sure to support Mike." If I had noticed more at that moment, things wouldn't have turned out as they did. After Emily left, Karen's attitude at home was terrible. Unlike me, who was thrilled about our first grandchild, Karen seemed completely uninterested. She said things like, "Grandchildren aren't cute," and, "because that baby is her baby, her face isn't pretty." It's hard to believe, but after all her past behavior, I was used to it. After a while, I decided to visit Emily and the baby, so I went to her house after work. They lived in a fairly large house, and you could tell if the lights were on from outside. That day, when I got there were no lights on, even though it was nighttime, which I found strange. The baby was still very young, so they shouldn't be out so easily. I wondered why not a single light was on, especially when Mike was supposed to be at home. I rang the intercom, but there was no answer. I hoped it was simply because nobody was home, but I had a bad feeling. Maybe it's because I'm a parent, but my intuition seemed to kick in. As an experiment, I put my hand on the doorknob, and it turned out the door was unlocked. Cautiously, I went inside and heard a baby crying from the back room. I knew it was my grandchild, but I was worried why the house was dark and why Emily and Mike weren't home. Emily would never leave the baby alone. When I went into the back room, I saw a shocking sight. In the dark room, Emily was alone, holding the baby, covered in bruises and with a swollen face, crying. What happened? I immediately hugged her. Just a short time ago, she had been fine, but now she was gaunt and unrecognizable. Where's Mike, and what happened? I asked, but she just kept crying, holding the baby. When she finally calmed down, I asked her again what happened. Then she told me something unbelievable. She said Mike and Karen got angry over her supposed cheating and hit her, claiming it was for discipline. I couldn't believe Emily would ever cheat, and even if she had, there's no excuse for hitting someone. I asked her where Mike and Karen were. She said they were on a trip together. Karen had made snide remarks to Mike even during their introduction, so I thought they didn't get along at all. I immediately called Karen and demanded to know where she was.
We're on a family trip.
What do you mean, family trip?
I'm on a trip with Mike. We're family, you know.
What kind of father leaves his young daughter and wife behind to go on a trip? I was furious. And you, what are you thinking, going on a trip with him? I heard Mike laughing in the background. Put him on the phone now, I demanded. After a while, Mike got on the phone and started making excuses.
I'm sorry, Bob, we're just on a family trip.
What family trip? No father would leave his young daughter and wife behind to go on a trip. Then Emily said something shocking. She said Karen and Mike were having an affair, which was why they were on the trip together. Unbelievable. Karen did like his type, but I never thought she'd go after her daughter's husband. At that moment, I realized, these people were not normal, and talking to them was pointless. I didn't care about Karen anymore, I just wanted to protect Emily. Remember this, we're done. Don't think you can go back to your normal life. That's what I said before I hung up. I was so angry that I just spoke my mind without thinking. I don't remember much after hanging up, but seeing Emily crying anxiously made me realize that I only needed her and my grandchild. Emily told me that Karen and Mike planned to be on vacation for a week, so I had to deal with everything during that time. Those 7 days were pure hell, but looking back, they flew by in an instant. First, I sold the house and land that Karen and I lived on and used the money to buy a big house for Emily, my grandchild, and me. I moved Emily and her baby into the new house and brought all her belongings from the old one. After a week, Karen and Mike returned from their trip. Karen called me, sounding panicked.
Where's the house? Where's everything?
I sold the house. All of the land too. Of course, since I bought both the house and the land, I don't need them anymore. I replied. Karen was very confused, wondering what I was saying and where I had done it. It seemed more like she was desperate than angry. Mike seemed clueless and was fumbling around. Anyway, there's no house for you anymore. And in case you thought I didn't know, I'm aware of your affair with Mike. That's beyond disgraceful.
What are you talking about? You're mistaken. I didn't have an affair, and it was a family trip. Yes, I might have hit Emily, but that was discipline. She was cheating with a coworker.
Yes, Bob, she was cheating. She got expensive gifts from a coworker under the pretense of baby gifts.
Even if she was cheating, hitting her isn't discipline. And it wasn't just a little hit. She was covered in bruises. Those gifts were from her coworkers, not just one person. You misunderstood completely. And you're the one who cheated. I continued. I know you brought different women into the house every day. Emily knows everything, and I've already heard everything. Don't think you can fool me. Even after all that, Karen and Mike insisted they were disciplining Emily and hadn't cheated. Seeing no point in continuing the conversation, I said, "We're done," and hung up. Mike returned to the house with Karen. There was a camera in the house to watch the baby. Since I could hear everything they were saying and see what was going on, I left it behind when I left the house. The camera was still working, so I could hear their entire conversation.
I can't believe he sold the house and the land. I'll apologize and get them back. We'll live there together. I won't let him have his way.
Karen didn't realize she was being overheard.
He's always been heartless, but I didn't think he'd do something this outrageous.
He's really heartless. Just like Emily. I can't believe she cheated with a coworker.
And you were cheating on me too, weren't you?
No, you're my number one.
It was a disgusting, stomach-churning conversation. Listening to their conversation made my ears rot. It felt satisfying to know they didn't realize they were being overheard. How do you like living in a house just for the two of you? When I spoke, they were startled as if they'd seen a ghost, collapsing in fear. But they couldn't figure out where the voice was coming from. It's the camera in front of you. It can see everything, I explained.
What's this camera? This is illegal. It's a crime.
Didn't you know? It's a baby monitor.
I had no idea. Emily must have set it up without telling me.
You never planned to be a father. You're truly pathetic and savage. I regretted ever trusting him. Karen was even worse.
Please, forgive me. I'm sorry. Give me back the house and land. Let's live together again.
What is this crazy woman talking about? I heard everything you said, even when you said something like apologizing just to get the house and land back.
That's a lie. I'm truly sorry.
Karen suddenly started bowing deeply.
I forgive everything. Just give me back the house and land.
What kind of person had I been living with all this time? I only need my daughter and grandchild. I'm done with you. Then Emily spoke up.
I've known everything all along, even though I've kept silent. I'm cutting ties with the family and getting a divorce.
Wait, you cheated. You've been in contact with some strange man.
That wasn't cheating. You, on the other hand, were bringing women into our house besides my mom, right?
That's a lie. I'll forgive everything. Just come back.
I don't need your forgiveness. We're done, and I won't have anything to do with you anymore.
I realized how strong Emily had become. She had grown into a mature woman, a mother protecting her child.
You were cheating, weren't you? You said you weren't, but you betrayed me.
It's not betrayal. Of course, I like young, lively girls, not an old woman like you. But you like my face, right? From now on, you'll do all the housework. This house is mine, after all.
Hearing their conversation, I realized it didn't matter anymore. The man who seemed like a nice young man turned out to be a jerk. It made me afraid to trust people again. Later, Emily told me that Mike changed significantly after they got married. When they first started dating, he seemed like a genuinely nice young man. He always thought about Emily, and it was clear that he cared deeply for her. But he resented that she earned more and did better at work despite being his junior. After marrying Emily and getting a house, he revealed his true colors and did whatever he wanted. After they got married, he became a domineering husband and would hit her at home regularly. During her stay at home for childbirth, he brought different women into their house every day. When she said she didn't want to return after childbirth, I should have listened. I'm glad I decided to visit their house that day after work. If I hadn't, I might never have known. Later, Emily, still bearing bruises, went to her workplace to thank her colleagues for the baby gifts. Since Mike worked at the same company, she ran into him there. Seeing her, he panicked, asking, "Why are you here now?" No wonder, since the rumors about him beating her, having an affair with his MIL, and the divorce had spread throughout the company. It must have been very uncomfortable for him. But he brought it on himself, so I felt it served him right. Eventually, the higher-ups found out about the scandal, and he was fired. Since I had also consulted the police, he faced charges. Of course, he also had to pay a hefty sum in damages. He lost his social standing and found it difficult to get another job. As for Karen, of course, rumors of divorce spread, and she was fired from the company where she had worked for a long time. She had no savings, and when she turned to her parents for money, they disowned her. No surprise there, her actions were disgraceful. I later learned that rumors spread around the neighborhood of the rented house, leaving her with nowhere to go. She ended up living with Mike. Mike's house was, of course, the same house where Emily used to live, and both of their figures were captured on camera. Their arguments about their lack of education and inability to find work were pathetic to watch. The baby monitor camera still worked, and one day Emily told him, "I wish we could go back to the past." He, in a panic, started groveling. "Yes, let's go back. I truly regret what happened this time. I'm sorry. I'll forgive everything you've done so far, so let's start over." I thought, how long will he remain delusional? Emily responded, "If I could go back, it would be to before I met you," and then she turned off the camera. That conversation marked the end of our ties with them, and we haven't seen them since. I was worried that such an ordeal would make Emily depressed. But each day she smiled more, watching her child grow with the face of a loving mother. Living with Emily and my grandchild is peaceful and truly happy. Despite the turmoil, I am content and at peace with my happy life now.